Hi there, my name is Stella O'Malley and I'm a psychotherapist. And I'm very happy to be bringing this presentation on coping with anxiety and stress because it's such anxious times. I wrote a book about anxiety and stress a couple of years ago called Fragile. And things have gone so mad since I've released that book in 2019, and anxiety levels and stress levels have become so intense that I'm very happy to be able to try and do my little bit that might help people kind of manage their well-being, help with strategies with stress and anxiety, and see if that can make people feel better. This Keep Well campaign is brought to you with thanks to Healthy Ireland, an initiative of the Government of Ireland, with funding from the Healthy Ireland Fund and the Sláinte Care Fund, delivered by Pubble. And I suppose more than anything, I feel with this Keep Well initiative is that it's needed. That too many clients are coming to me, they're feeling stressed, they keep feeling anxious, and there's a feeling of being overwhelmed and not being able to cope. And I do think that the media is really impacting people. And I do think it's very important that if you feel overwhelmed, you learn to monitor your media and you maybe reduce it so that you don't get too overwhelmed by, I don't know, lists of people dying or terrible news or further bad news because it's so unbalancing for our mental health. So as it says there, understanding anxiety, a good definition for anxiety is overestimation of the danger and an underestimation of our ability to cope. And if you can accurately estimate the danger, and if you can accurately estimate your ability to cope, you will feel less anxious. And so I'm not looking for a sunny side up or just positive thinking. I'm thinking accurate thinking. Accurately, your estimation could be an overestimation of the danger. And to be very clear, most of us, when we go into our emotional brain, which is full of hot kind of air, we tend to overestimate the distress and think everything's going to be awful. And we also think we won't be able to cope. And, Maya Angelou, the great, you know, writer, she said, we can endure more than we think we can. And we can. And we actually cope so much better than what we think we can. When we first, got the lockdown in March the 11th, and we thought we worried about whether the children would be back to school before the Easter holidays, and ended up being months and months of different lockdowns and restrictions, and we coped. We're still here. We managed to get some laughs out of it. So don't underestimate your ability to cope. Bad times can come and bad times can go, and it does impact us, but we need to be aware that we generally cope. So if you look at the difference, some people are very physical, and that's, in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Some people, it manifests, the stress manifests in a physical way. So if you look at the orange body where it says there in the top left of the screen there, headaches, frequent infections, muscular tension, fatigue, skin irritations, and breathlessness. That's somebody whose stress manifests in a very physical way. And so you might have skin rashes, you might have headaches, you might feel tension. And somebody who's kind of distress manifests in a behavioral way, the bottom right there, they could be accident prone, they could be prone to undereating or overeating, they could drink too much, they could lose their sex drive or have insomnia, restlessness, or turn to smoking. They're again very physical reactions. So you could have, skin irritations, or you could have insomnia, or you could have both. And you could say, I'm very stressed, but I don't think about it. It just comes out in my body. While somebody who's more cognitively minded, it could come out in their brain. They're worrying too much. They're tossing and turning. They've muddled thinking. They can't concentrate because they keep on thinking about the thing they're worrying about. Nightmares, indecision, negativity, and hasty decisions. And also somebody who's very cognitive, and it goes into their emotional brain, where there's a loss of confidence. You can become very fussy when you're stressed. You can be very, exacting and very prone to perfectionism, irritable. People underestimate the impact of anxious rage. And the rage that comes from somebody anxious is really phenomenal. Depression, anger, apprehension, anxiety. And these are all the things when somebody is very cognitive. And so if you are more cognitive, if you tend to overthink, and if you tend to kind of go into kind of muddled thinking or distressed thinking or tossing and turning at night, well, that say to me that you would probably benefit more from a cognitive, perhaps therapeutic way, which might be journaling, might be drawing a picture, or talking, that you need to talk your way out of your anxiety. Somebody who's more physical, where it might manifest with skin rashes or headaches or overeating, they might benefit from massages, swimming, running. It depends on the person. But just to bring about some awareness to how your stress manifests and how the solution manifests, it can really help you cope better. So, a good coping strategy is to be aware of your locus of control. People who have an internal locus of control feel that they're in charge of their life, they're in charge of the ship. Their life is in their destiny. And as it says there, I control my destiny. While people with an external locus of control who are more prone to anxiety and stress believe that other people are in control, the government, the restrictions, the healthcare system, the education, the teacher, the bosses, they're in control of our lives. And if you think your control of your life is limited, you're more likely to be stressed. And the more you can find things that you're in control of, the more you'll feel a sense of competency and less stressed and less anxious. And so there's the classic internal locus of control where you make things happen. And if you're unhappy, you make it better. So you might say, I make things happen. Look what I can do. I can determine my future. While somebody with an external locus of control is things happen to me. Why bother? There's nothing I can do about my future. Why does everything happen to me? And so as you can see, there's a difference in the kind of attitude of the person who has an external locus control. So there's, a real example of when somebody has an external locus of control. They think it's not my fault, it's fate. There's nothing that we can do about it. And it's kind of a funny kind of one, but it's quite true as well, if you see what I mean. So, if you want to build an internal locus of control, there are some steps you can take. Viktor Frankl was a great psychotherapist, psychologist. He was originally he was Jewish, and he was in the Holocaust, and he was in the concentration camps. And he realized that when he was there, that he had to take some control of his day, or else he would succumb to feelings of overwhelm and despair. And so he decided the piece of bread he's eating, he might, eat it in 9 bites for no other reason than to kind of give himself a sense of control over his life. Or he might take 7 steps to walk from here to the door. That is somebody in a very desperate situation. However, he left, eventually got out of the concentration camp, survived, and built a therapy, logotherapy, from this. And as he says there, the loss of human feelings, the last of human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in a given set of circumstances. So no matter what your circumstances are, you have the ability to choose your attitude. So today, no matter what's going on today, you have the ability to say, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to knock some fun out of it. So here's a nice 4-step to try to build some sort of sense of control over your life, building an internal locus of control. 1, figure out what can you control? What are your options? Maybe you can control your bedroom. Maybe you can control your food today. Maybe you can control whether you go out for a walk or whether you meet your friend or something. What can you control? To identify your goals and divide them into steps. So, what are your actual goals? So, maybe it might be to socialize more, or it might be to reduce your stress and anxiety. And they often say, try to get rid of it. And I'd say, yeah, that's too hard. You'd be much better off just trying to reduce the impact, reduce the intensity, reduce the frequency, reduce the time that's spent, and that'll be enough. And so, if you can identify your goals, and then practice self compassion and encouragement. Be nice to yourself. Talk to yourself in a compassionate way. Talk to yourself in an encouraging way. And then the 4th point, when you're trying to build a sense of control, is find out where you need the extra support and find out where you can get it. It might be a counselor or a psychotherapist. It might be going to MABS for some financial control. It might be ringing your mother and getting some kind of boundaries in a relationship, or it might be re-nurturing a friendship that you've let go through your fingers. I don't know what it is for your extra support, but make sure that you do ask for help. So if you look at the stress cycle here, you'll see that, one thing can lead to another, can lead to another. Stress starts as a little snowflake and you feel a bit tense and turns into a snowball. The snowball goes down the mountain and it gathers. And if it keeps on gathering, it gets bigger and bigger until it's an avalanche of your emotions and you're absolutely overwhelmed. And this is how it very, very often starts. So one thing might go wrong and it can lead to another, lead to another. As it says there in the wine, you sleep poorly or inadequately. Then into the purple, an extra task is added to your already full workload. Then you get instant panic. You can't do it because there isn't enough time. Then you feel helpless or overwhelmed. Then you're getting physical symptoms of stress and negativity. You might have skin, you might feel too hot, you might feel itchy, depends on the person. You might work late or you might take work home. And then what happens? You might sleep badly again. And the next day, you're in day 2 now, you might have a snappy conversation because you're underslept. And it gets bigger and stressier and worse and worse. And this happens to many, many people for many months before they go for help. And that's where you have to be very careful of the snowball going down the mountain. You know, that great writer, Thoreau said, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. And I don't think it's good enough if we lead a life of quiet desperation. There's better life out there and we can have a great life. And that's up to us to choose. And so if something like that happens, you need to learn the art of stopping. You need to learn how to stop, as it says there, stop thinking, stop your emotional thought train taking over, stop the kind of the snowball falling down the mountain, stop being busy, just pause, become aware, and tap into how you're feeling and realize I'm underslept, I'm a little bit fragile, I need to take it easy today and not take on anything extra. I need to say no a little bit more often today because I'm wobbly. And then by tomorrow I'll be better. While if you don't, it'll build up and build up and build up. And that's why we need the art of stopping. This is a lovely acronym for kind of people who need to learn the art of stopping. So S, stop what you're doing. T, take a breath. Breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. What you're trying to do is slow yourself down. So you stop what you're doing, you take a breath. Oh, you observe your thoughts and your feelings and your body. You might feel the stress in your shoulders. You might feel stress in your jaw. You might soften your jaw. You might soften your shoulders. And then P, proceed with something that will support you in this moment. And you might think to yourself, I need to relax. I need to go for a walk later. I need actually to take some time off. I need to meditate. I need to do my yoga. I don't know what it is you need to do, but think about what you need. Maybe you just need to ring a friend and reconnect. Have a bit of a laugh with your sister. It mightn't be much, but STOP is a lovely way of stopping the snowball and saying, hang on a second, I'm feeling a little bit fragile. You can do it at any point during the day that you just stop. STOP. Stop, take a moment, observe yourself, and proceed with something that will help you. It can be a very, very helpful strategy for people who are inclined to run from stress to anxiety. So here's a few triggers that you might find. Some people find that they get triggered by unstructured time or boredom. Some people annoyingly get triggered by the complete opposite. So you can't say one size fits all with this. Some people get by too much structured time, too busy times, too many demands. Certain situations stress some people, for example, being with certain people, around certain behavior. Loud noises really hurt some people, sensory issues. As it says there, there's the stress cycle: poor sleep, bad start to the day, bad productivity, exhaustion, worry, on and on and on. Be very aware of your cycle. That's a very common cycle. You might have it slightly different, but they're very common. So, for example, you mightn't have much work performance as an issue. What you might have is relationship problems because you're underslept. So try to become aware, because self-awareness is the strongest tool we have for anxiety. As it says there, we need to learn to breathe. If you can fully breathe for calm, to convey steadiness, to show confidence, to anchor yourself, and more than anything, if we can learn to slow our breathing, as I said, breathe in through your nose if you can, you stop, hold it, and then breathe out through your mouth. And it'll connect with your deepest self. And with breathing, when you breathe in, if you can stop, they often say breathe in for 3, hold it, breathe out for 5. Breathe in for 3 again, hold it, breathe out for 5. You're trying to do it slowly and to slow your brain down. Why? So you can get out of that fast, emotional, powerful, overwhelming brain and into the contemplative, calmer, slower, wise brain. That's why you're trying to slow yourself down. Some people might do it with a glass of water, or by counting back in hundreds and sevens. There's lots of different ways to slow your brain down, but that's what you're trying to do. So when anxiety and stress get triggered, the body, it's amazing how much happens to the body. For example, the adrenal glands start releasing chemicals, adrenaline and cortisol and hormones. The adrenaline releases the fight or flight response. I'll tell you about that in a moment. The cortisol releases the long lasting stress responses, which lead to things like sicknesses, muscular tension, and lots of other issues. Maybe your digestive system might constrict, so you mightn't eat so well, or your breathing system might constrict, so you mightn't breathe so well. The long lasting responses might happen then. The body immediately feels tingly because it's getting ready to be attacked. So when anxiety gets stressed, your body gets ready to be attacked. And so you feel over alert and you feel a bit clammy, a little bit weak, a bit kind of dizzy with it all because everything is going on in your body. Your heartbeat is beating faster, your blood pressure is rising, blood from the insight and the logic center is all going towards the emotional brain where you're getting ready to run, getting ready to fight. The emotional brain, which is not the brightest or most intelligent part of your brain, that's getting taken over. Everything's rising. The kind of the waves are rising, and they're rising very fast when you get stressed. And the amygdala, which processes memory and emotional reactions, that's getting into gear. So you can see when you're stressed, when something triggers you, it could be something small like somebody shouts, your body goes, loads of things are happening immediately. And what we need to do is hang on. I'm not being attacked by a tiger here. Hang on. It's just a ping from my phone. Because every single one of those pings, every single one of those notifications or kind of intrusions can cause a little bit of stress. And so be wary of the reaction because you can go into fight or flight mode too easily. And then your body can get jammed into fight or flight mode. And every single response is like, what now? What fresh hell is this? So the fight or flight mode is an amazing part of your brain that protects us when we are attacked. And so if you got mugged today, you'd go into fight or flight mode. Some people in fight or flight mode fight. They argue, they fight. Some people run. So if you got mugged, you would run. Some people freeze. So fight, flight, freeze, or appease is the easy way to remember it. If you freeze, you just literally get frozen on the spot. And then appease. Somebody who appeases, oh, I tried to make friends with my mugger. What do you want? I'll just be friendly with you. Now, you could say there's good and bad in every one of them. There isn't a good one, there isn't a bad one. Sometimes it's great to fight. Sometimes it's terrible to fight. Sometimes it's great to run. Sometimes it's terrible, and so on. So don't think there's a good one or a bad one. Figure out which is your one, which is your instinct, and be wary of it because sometimes it's not your friend and sometimes it's the best thing you have. So when you're being attacked, you go into your response. That's what's going to keep you alive. When you're not being attacked, but you think you're being attacked, you also go into that response. Watch out for that because your boss might just say to you, could you do that extra work? And you could immediately start fighting because you've been triggered, literally triggered, or you could immediately freeze rather than speaking up when you should, depending on your response. So be very careful of it and be very aware of it. And the more, as I said, the more you can be aware of your stress responses, the stronger you are in being able to fight it. And I do want to say, people often say, I can't say no to other people. And that's where my boundaries are. And I don't, and I'd say, yeah, you can say no to yourself. As it says there, when you say yes to others, make sure you're not saying no to yourself. Paulo Coelho, the writer, said that. Because if you say you can't say no to others, well, then I would say, well, you can say no. You're just not able to say no to others. So it's something you have to practice. And you practice in the shallow end by saying no to people that are easy to say no to. Or if you're very, very bad at it, you say, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. Because you can't say no in the moment. I'll get back to you. It depends on yourself, really. But it is something that you really need to learn so that your stress and anxiety doesn't always get triggered by a demand. Instead, you've learned to say, I'll get back to you about that. And you go off and think about it and you devise the appropriate response as opposed to going straight into your fight or flight response, where you go into instinctive responses, which are not necessarily helpful. So I really hope that you benefited from this talk. I do think that stress and anxiety it's our big fear at the moment. It's the one that more than anything else, it's the most commonly mentioned distress in my clinic. It's the feeling of people late at night tossing and turning and not sleeping. It's people feeling panicked by the latest demand. It's people walking around feeling stressed every time the mobile phone rings. It's people getting into fights because of anxious rage. There's an awful lot of anxiety out there. And that's why we have to be very careful around our coping strategies, learning the art of stopping, learning how to breathe. Breathe in, hold it, and breathe out for no other reason so you can slow yourself down. So that maybe you're at a bus stop, or you're at a red light, or you're in a queue in Super Value or in a shop, and you do nothing but check in with yourself. Learn the art of stopping. Check into how you're feeling, and check into what is making me stressed at the moment. How am I feeling? What would I need to do to make myself feel better? Remember the acronym STOP. Stop for a moment. O, observe your thoughts. T, take a moment to observe your thoughts. O, observe, and then P, proceed with something that will help you in the moment. So it's very, very important that you take these kind of steps. And I do want to say, for some people, they love mindfulness and it really works. For some people, they hate it. And clients have come into me saying, do anything with me, but don't do mindfulness because I hate it. And that's perfectly fine. You have to find your own thing. Some people, the run works, some people, they hate it. And so, what's most important for yourself is to find, and they have that great line from Alcoholics Anonymous, which is take what you need and leave the rest. And for talks like this, I'm talking to who knows who. So, what your job is to take what you need and leave the rest, not necessarily take everything that I say on board. Take what really sings to you, take what would benefit you, and that should be enough for you to get a few strategies around your anxiety or your stress, because you didn't come to see this talk for no reason at all. There was a reason. And so for that, I would say listen to it, listen to your body, listen to your emotions, and attend to it. And just to finish off, I want to point out that probably the biggest block in somebody getting better is that they give out to themselves for their feelings. So the depressed person gets depressed about being depressed. The anxious person gets anxious about their anxiety. And that is something, if you want to free yourself, if you really want to do it and to do it in a way that frees you up, I would say free yourself from this awful anxiety that you have to do it and you have to get rid of your anxiety. Instead, I would say make your peace at being anxious and realizing with anxiety comes high performance, becomes huge empathy, comes huge sensitivity, becomes a reactive and kind of quick minded person who's often very, very, very compassionate to other people. There is probably great benefits to you. And also, there's great disadvantages. So you try to say, okay, I just need to reduce it. I need to reduce the impact, reduce the frequency, reduce the strength, reduce the length of time that it hurts me, and that'll be enough. As opposed to trying to get rid of it and giving out to yourself for having it. It's okay to be an anxious person. Some people seem to come out of the womb anxious. And yet there's some great attributes to being an anxious person. There's some really, they often work very hard. The performance is often very high. So please, my plea to you is don't give out to yourself for being anxious. Don't give out to yourself for being stressed. Instead, work with the good and get some coping strategies around the more difficult. And from that, you'll free yourself to live a kind of a happier, a more accepting life. Thank you very much.